everybody. Welcome to Bestseller TV. I'm Taryn Winter-Brill. We're here with C. Lee Smith. He is the author of SalesCred, How Buyers Qualify Sellers. Lee, it's great to have you with us.
It's great to be with you, Taryn.
So congrats. This is your second book.
Thank you.
And so the first book also was a sales book. This is a sales book. I'm always curious, obviously you're passionate about sales. Tell us why.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I've been a salesperson for 35 years. I've been in sales management for almost that long. It's just a passion of mine. It's something that, I believe very strongly, Taryn, that, sales is a industry that gets a bad rap a lot of times. It's like all industries, we're judged by our worst practitioners, whether it be chiropractors, car salesmen, whatever, CEOs. So same thing happens in sales. But I actually believe that most salespeople have the ability then to actually have a positive outcome on our prospects' lives, and by helping them solve problems and achieve goals. So that's why I'm so excited about it.
Sure. So tell us about what you sell then. You mentioned cars, you mentioned things. So what is your background? What have you been selling?
So my background is developing SaaS products, so software as a service product. So the first one we did was called AdMall, which is used by the majority of media companies across the United States. And then after that, Sales Fuel Coach, which is a platform used by sales managers for coaching their sales teams. And then we were asked then to do Sales Fuel Hire, which is a diagnostic tool, which basically serves as a BS detector whenever you're interviewing sales candidates for open positions.
Gotcha. So what made you want to go into sales? You clearly, you can tell you're fully passionate about it. You got excited about it, rightfully so. Was this something, kind of ingrained in you from an early age, nature versus nurture? How would you explain it?
It's like I have always been involved in sales in some way, shape, or form. I like it. I like speaking. I like helping people. I like having people listen to me, obviously. And then, but I actually went into sales as a career initially for the money. And then what happened very quickly is that what I really enjoyed was helping people, increase their business and improve their sales and, and make people happier, and improve their customer service. So that's actually what drives me every morning.
Sure. And when you sit down and write a book, is the impetus, these are books I wish I would have had when I was starting out?
Absolutely. Absolutely, Taryn. Yeah, that's absolutely the case. I mean, SalesCred could have been written 20 years ago, although I think it's a lot more pertinent now since we have the internet, and now the buyers are really using this opportunity to qualify us as sellers before they even meet with us or before they even grace us with a return phone call or an email. And so what the problem of it is that we're still stuck as salespeople in the whole idea of, okay, what's our ICP, and are they a marketing qualified lead or a sales qualified lead, or will they buy enough to be an enterprise level account? And we're too busy trying to qualify them when we really should be thinking more about how they qualify us.
Why should we be thinking about that? When was the aha moment for you where you're like, no one's thinking about this and they need to be?
Well, it's true that that the buyers will respond to an email, return a phone call, or invite you to compete for their business if they believe you can help. And top executives are really much more likely then to meet with you if they feel like it's not going to be a waste of their time. And this requires the sales rep to have a really high degree of credibility so that they can attract higher level clients. They can gain access to the decision makers. They can really sell from a position of strength instead of selling from a position of weakness where we're scared of the buyer all the time. And so I wrote this book because so many people that I see give away their power, give away their credibility and the stupid things that they do every single day.
Yeah. So tell us, let's get into some of those stupid things. What are you trying to nip in the bud? What are people doing that gives up, their credibility, so to speak?
Well, I think a lot of times is people need to actually understand how important credibility is. And so everyone wants to be a trusted advisor. That's what they say. And, they want to earn trust. And it's a little bit harder now because like we can't take them out to dinner or see them at lunch and meet face to face, because we're doing a lot more through Zoom calls these days. But people need to understand that credibility is a prerequisite of trust. You cannot be a trusted advisor and achieve trust unless you have credibility. Now, and also understand that having credibility doesn't automatically mean that they trust you. So, you can have one without the other. So they really are two separate things. But, the things I'm talking about, Taryn, are things like the words they use in emails or how they conduct themselves during an online video meeting. All those types, just little things like that. The little things that they say and do, how they don't follow up and do what they say they're going to do afterwards.
What's the worst offender? What is the one that maybe two questions is what's the most common and what is the worst one, one that you never want to commit?
The most common offender of giving away your credibility is your LinkedIn profile. 59% of buyers will actually check, look you up online. They'll do a Google search on you, and 30% of them are close to it then are also checking out your LinkedIn profile. And if your LinkedIn profile, doesn't have your last name, or it doesn't have your title correct, or it's not up to date, or it has obviously incorrect information, but if it doesn't scream, hey, here's why I'm uniquely qualified to solve your problem or help you achieve your goal, then you need to rewrite your LinkedIn profile and understand that your LinkedIn profile, you might be thinking of as, okay, this is my virtual resume, so that, if a recruiter wants to call me and I can get hired for a job somewhere else. You really need to be thinking about, while you have a job, your LinkedIn profile then is helping you get a job with the buyer, and it should be written as such while you have that job. So that is the most common. The most egregious, though, obviously lying. There's that, throwing people under the bus. We have some great research in the back of the book, where we ask, okay, which of these behaviors are instant deal breakers? And so those two are at the top of the list, but the number one is actually being too pushy. So pushing people to make a decision to buy before they've made that decision, probably because you're solving the wrong problem, or you haven't given them enough information or enough motivation then to buy, or maybe they just don't have the motivation or the budget to buy what you're selling right now.
Yeah. I mean, but now in this COVID world that we're living in, Zoom, right? These interviews are being
Mhm.
done via Zoom. What are the new mistakes people are making? And you mentioned social media videos, but are people making Zoom sales cred errors?
Well, yeah, I think it really starts with the backgrounds are a big one right here. So that behind me is not a virtual background. That is an actual fabric background. And what I see so many times is that people will hop on a Zoom call, and they're dressed, it's sweats and a t-shirt. Really? Would you show up at their office dressed like that? Number one. Number two is like, and look behind, it's like, okay, I've got, what are people going to have up there? They're going to have, sparse walls or pictures on the walls or all kinds of knickknacks or whatever that really don't have anything that tells the buyer, hey, I'm serious about this industry. I'm serious about delivering results for you, and I know how to do it. And if your background is so cluttered, where it looks like you belong on an episode of Hoarders, then it's like, then it's time to rethink that. And I'm not even a really big fan of the virtual backgrounds, because, sometimes if you're making hand gestures or something like that, your hand will disappear. That's really awkward and hard to watch. So that's just one example, but certainly the other things is like showing up late, fumbling around with your audio and your visual and everything like that. Act like you've been there before, right? And that's going to make them feel a lot more comfortable in working with you, and that's going to increase your credibility.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's curious, from your standpoint, it is true. The background, what you're wearing, all that stuff matters. I mean, obviously it matters. It always mattered in person, but now everything is so much more magnified.
Mhm.
The book is an actionable sales journal. It's an interesting type of book. Tell everybody about it. It's a quick read. It's like 20 minutes.
Mhm.
Snack sized, right? I mean, it's just kind of snack sized bullet points. How would you describe it?
Yeah, it really is, because salespeople are busy people. Sales managers are busy people. Sales managers don't, want their salespeople on company time to be out there selling. And so what I wanted to do was write this book for people with short attention spans. And so the idea there is like, I'm going to sum up 140 points, in something that you could actually tweet. And then I'm going to ask, many times I will ask a question that's introspective, about how would you apply this, or do you exhibit this type of behavior, and or what would you do differently? And I give them a few lines underneath of each what we call cred tip, so that they can actually write that stuff down. And so what I'm doing a live training session or a virtual training session, the sales cred book actually acts as the workbook as well. So that's the whole point. We want people to be able to get through it quickly. I mean, there's some more in-depth stuff in the back of the book, obviously, but this is not War and Peace, and it doesn't really need to be. We really want to make an impact, have you improve your behavior, improve your credibility, then so you can improve your sales.
Yeah. You have great credibility when you write a book that really is, user friendly, right? Like because it's
And it's funny you mentioned that, because it's really much harder to write a shorter book. I mean, because I started off with 250 cred tips, and I'm going through it. I'm trying to, combine some and deciding which ones I'm going to throw out. And so I take the stuff that I throw out, put it in a parking lot, and ends up on social media somewhere.
or the next book, right? I mean,
That's right. Yes.
I was curious. You took the words or the numbers out of my mouth. I mean, 140. You said you were from over 200. How did you edit and pick and choose?
I think it's just a matter of I looked at which ones of these are going to impact the most number of people, or which ones are most common then to salespeople of all types. I
Mhm.
tend to focus more on the B2B salesperson then that has a more complicated, a more complex product, a higher touch product, or one that requires a higher degree of customer service. It requires more of account management, if you will. So not commodities, not these one-off type things. So I try to focus, and get inside the head of that person because I've been that person. So that's how I wrote the book, and that's how I've decided which ones to keep and which ones to throw out.
Right. And that said, I was curious, who is the target reader? How do I know if I'm the right reader for your book? Is it a certain, um, person you're trying to appeal to?
Yeah, certainly. If you are B2B, so you're selling to businesses of any type, absolutely. There's some consumer products, for example, that are a very big ticket item and everything like that, and requires a little bit more deliberation. So it's not an impulse buy from the customer. You definitely want to read this book. And if you're managing accounts of any way, shape, or form where you want them to reorder from you, SalesCred is a book that you need to read.
Yeah. And you've sort of flipped the model of this. You go into detail, not too much detail, just but you know what I mean, the hierarchy of sales credibility, because less is more. And there's sort of five levels. It's excuse me, it's this pyramid. What I thought was
Mhm.
interesting is the first level was what the internet says. I guess that's the first level of the hierarchy in terms of achieving credibility. I'm curious, pre-internet, Lee, what was that level called?
Probably word of mouth reputation.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
except now the difference is that or it could be first impression. The problem is now that the salesperson does not get the opportunity to make the first impression. Google does that for you.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, and is there any way to, once they've made that impression, if it's not the impression you want, what's your advice? How do you fix that? Because let's say it's not warranted, right? Let's
Hmm.
say it's not
Hmm.
your fault. What do you do?
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, we give several tips in the book. So, for example, if you have some content up there about you that is unflattering, or maybe it's something that you wrote when you were 14 and or wish you hadn't have done it, if you can't get it removed, you want to drown it out. You want to show how your thinking has evolved, or your knowledge has evolved, and you want to drown it out with newer content then that is more in line with how society today thinks, for example. Or if you have somebody then who is unfairly written something nasty about you on Glassdoor, for example, it's like, then that's this. Now we're talking, if you're an employer, for example, what you want to do then is drown that out then with other more positive reviews from the majority of people then that love working for you. And so it could be the same thing as a salesperson with ratings and reviews. It's the same kind of concept going on there. But there are multiple tips and strategies that we give you in the book. Just because we keep them short, I make careful point to make sure that they're impactful.
Yeah, for sure. That said, do you have a favorite one or favorite two? I don't know.
Oh,
Favorite
boy,
title?
like all of my children, they're all my favorites.
Good answer.
But I would have to say then that you know, if you want, I'm a big fan of Tom Peters, and I've had him on my podcast, the Manage Smarter podcast, a couple of times. He was the author of In Search of Excellence, and also several books since then. Always have been a big fan of his philosophy of the under promise and over deliver, because if you're able to do that, then that goes into to what you do portion. That's level 4 of the pyramid. Then if you're able to do that, you're going to increase your credibility. And ideally, for a salesperson, what we want to achieve is a level 5, the very top of the pyramid, which is what they say. What we want is we want the customers, the accounts, then to be introducing us to their friends and business colleagues, so we can solve their problems, because that means that they believe that we're capable of doing it. We want them to make those introductions, give us testimonials, give us case studies that we can use. If that happens, then it makes our sales job so much easier. But that's level 5, and there's 4 levels that we've got to excel at before we can actually get there.
So what happens when you do make it to level 5 of the hierarchy of sales credibility? What is maintenance, Lee? How do you maintain your position there?
So that's a very good question, because what with the hierarchy of sales credibility is for every single account or prospect that you interact with. So it's not like, oh, I've made it to level 5. It's just like I've got my degree hanging up on the wall. It's not like that. It's like, okay, you might be at level 5 with one customer, but you may be only down at level 1 with another. So
Interesting.
the idea is that you want to try to build up to level 5 on every single prospected account that you possibly can.
Uh-huh. That's very insightful. I was wondering. So it's a case by case. That hierarchy exists on its own for each and every client. Okay.
Yeah, for every relationship that you have. Yeah.
Right. Very, very interesting. I mean, it's great. Like I said, I just love that, read a lot of books on the show. It really is a fast read. And I think that that really speaks to a lot of people in the fast world, that we're living in. I think you said earlier, it's not War and Peace, and it doesn't have to be. That's a great title of the book. Maybe that's the next title. So, we appreciate it. And just because, less is sometimes more, there might be short tidbits, but there's really a lot to be gained from it. So congratulations. The hierarchy is very cool. And, yeah, sky's the limit, as they say.
Absolutely, Taryn. Thank you for having me on your show. And it's like only 1 in 4 of people in North America view salespeople as credible. So when we start off, from behind, before we even pick up the phone or before we even send an email. So we've got to overcome then the lack of credibility from every bad salesperson that's ever called on an account. So
Totally.
we got to keep that in mind.
Yeah, I mean that was one of the, all these things we didn't even get to. I did want to mention that you have this great survey in the back which talks about credibility, and like I said, 1 in 4 people view salespeople as credible. 1 in 3 sales real estate agents rather. So you go through
Mhm.
kind of all of these occupations and the level of credibility, and yeah, salespeople are it's an uphill battle.
And automotive salespeople, the worst. I mean, 1 in 5. I mean, and there's the thing. It's like they build apps. Okay, they build websites because people do not want to deal with these salespeople. They're trying to avoid these salespeople. We did another survey at SalesFuel where 20% of car buyers said that they did not want to interact with a salesperson because they were afraid of getting screwed on the deal. We actually used that language, in the survey question. So when you have that, and you have all these apps and websites being built so people can avoid dealing with your salespeople, it shows that there's a real problem there. But again, it's not just limited to people that sell cars. It's people that sell other things because they view it as, it's the problem with salespeople in general, is that we're all the time, we start off thinking about, again, us qualifying the buyer, but also we're thinking about meeting our quota, making our numbers, winning the sales contest. Oh yeah, we're thinking about us, and we're talking about our products, our companies, ourselves, instead of asking smart questions of our prospects and actually listening to what they have to say and being curious enough then to ask good follow-up questions that show them that we're truly genuinely interested in them and the struggles that they're having in their business.
Yeah, no, it's really informative because trust is not credibility and credibility is not trust. And you talk about that, especially for, new up and comers in the sales world. I think it's a really important distinction to be made. And that's what this hierarchy is all about. So thanks for spending some time with us, and congratulations.
Thank you for having me, Taryn.
And if you'd like more information on the book, just check out our website. It's c-suitebookclub.com. That's c-suitebookclub.com. I'm Taryn Winterbrill. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time right here on Bestseller TV via Zoom.